Hello and welcome to a Life Too Sweet podcast. My name is Dana. I am a Christian and I have a question for you. And this is something that I've been thinking about for a while. So why do I believe what I believe? Why do you believe what you believe? And how can this affect us? How does this affect our world? How is this affecting our world today? What's going on? I mean, questions, right? One thing I noticed about Jesus is he asks a lot of questions. And the cool thing I noticed about the preacher that I listened to, Jesse Lee Peterson, is that he asks a lot of questions. He wants you to think for yourself, right? Think for ourselves. So let's think for ourselves. Why did I believe certain things? So I'm going to go with, I was a Bible thumping, church going Christian for about 5 years. And why did I believe what I was told? Why did I believe that God was real? Why did I believe in the Trinity? So I'm going to tell you why I believed in this stuff and how crazy it is, because did I believe it for myself or did I believe it because it was told to me? Why? And I noticed Jesse Lee Peterson asks this all the time to people. Why do you believe that? Like they'll say, why don't you believe in the Trinity? I believe in it. Why do you believe in it? And many times I hear them say the same reason that I believed in it. And I'm going to tell you. So I was living a life and I was struggling with something. Okay. I had an issue and I was struggling with that issue. And I was away from it for a long time, and then I started struggling again, and I started hanging out with a friend. And we were both struggling at that time. And years ago, I wanted to start looking into God. I did, but I didn't go too far. I bought a Bible, and that's about it. And so this guy comes to me one day when we're hanging out, and he's like, Dana, do you believe in God? I said, of course I do. And he's like, do you believe in heaven and hell? I said, well, I believe in heaven. I believe, but I don't know if I believe in hell. And he said, oh, well, there's a hell. And he was so sure of himself. And that was it. That was the reason I believed him. Okay. Because this is something that I've always used to tell people about my story, that he was so convincing. Now, he was so convincing with his words. Now, with his actions, and it does talk about in the Bible, right? You'll know by their fruits. Well, his fruits were very worldly, right? He lived a worldly life, and he was living a life that I thought were sins back then. I wasn't sure, but I just thought, he was sleeping with more than one woman. He lied to them about it, or he told them and used that as an excuse. I told you that I'm cheating, with another girl, all these kind of things. So he's not living right, but he told it to me and he said it's so matter of fact. And then he started telling me a question that I had when I was a child about, well, how is Jesus God and Jesus God's son? It doesn't make any sense to me. How does that work? Well, he gives me the whole story, and he's intellectually explaining this to me. Think of it as water. Water can be in ice, like H2O could be ice. It could be liquid. And he was saying, well, that's how God and Jesus is. So Jesus is God, but there's three in one. So there are three individuals in one. And so I'm like, all right, sounds like a great explanation. He sounded like he understood it. He knew it. I believe it. Now I believe it. And so as I'm going along, becoming a Christian, I'm starting to ask questions. Some things I want to overcome. I don't want to overcome anger. I want to overcome, why I'm still unhappy. Why do I get sad? All these little things that I'm wondering, and all I'm told is, read the Bible. Now, so I believed something somebody told me, right? But I saw that he wasn't living right. So what did I do? I made the excuse. Well, he's only human. I found some excuse. But I was believing in something because somebody told me it. So then there's the Bible, right? I'm reading the Bible and I'm like, well, this is supposed to be God's word, right? So if this is God's word, why am I not living it? And then this is other people are writing these stories. It's not God that's writing these stories. How is God giving them the word? And I'm starting to ask these questions, right? Asking questions. Why do I believe what I believe? So I'm listening to the preachers. I'm going to church. I'm reading the Bible. I join programs. I become a leader in the programs. I go to school to be a life coach. And so why do I believe that? I believed it. But I had questions and I wasn't 100% sure. So what did I do? I made the excuse. Well, I'm only human and God's going to tell me that when he comes back. Jesus is going to come back and then we'll know. So I'm thinking, now I'm asking questions. Now when I started asking questions, I started going, well, let me go to the leaders. Let me go to the women that have been around for a long time. So I'd go to the women and I would go to my Bible study class and I'd say, well, I don't know. I mean, when I hear Jesus, he doesn't sound very loving and caring, the loving that I knew. And they're like, oh, and they laughed about it. And they're like, it's really nice that you ask questions and that's so nice. And blah. And then I'm like, yeah, that is nice. And because they said it's nice, I fall for it. And I'm like, this is so great. And then okay. So now your average person, I think, will just stick with that and be like, well, I feel good. But then what happens when I don't feel good anymore? What happens when just listening to the music and going to church isn't making things better and I'm getting worse? Well, what do? Do I keep making those excuses? Or do I say, hey, something's not right. Why am I so angry? So I believed stuff because somebody told me, but the answers weren't coming to me. I wasn't getting them from within. I wasn't 100% sure. And I noticed that in life. I was never 100% sure. But I was searching. And I used to always say, I am searching to find truth. That is what my purpose is on this earth. Like I always felt that way. And so I'm believing all this stuff and I'm sitting in my little groups and then I'm starting to realize, wait a minute, this person's not changing. And this guy's been in a leadership for, 8 years. He's been, doing so well, supposedly. And then he falls back into all the issues he had before. Well, we're not perfect. I'm thinking, but it says in this Bible that they're telling me to read, be perfect like your Father is perfect. So why can't I do that? You have power, more power. And so now I'm starting to ask questions, right? I'm starting to ask questions. Jesus asked questions. He asked questions of people. Find out for yourself. And so the reason why I started thinking about this stuff is because I was like, why was I believing stuff and I didn't know the truth? And why did I just believe it? Because somebody told it to me when it wasn't happening, when I wasn't seeing it, right? Why? Why am I not changing? That's the question I kept asking. And so I realized that things weren't changing and something's wrong here, right? Something's wrong here. And so what did I do? I asked God, why am I still this way? Why? Why am I this way? And when I was just still and trying to feel it, I started realizing I'm getting angry about little things. Like any little thing was bothering me. I'm like, this anger thing seems to be a big deal, right? So I talked about that in my last podcast about anger and seeing that with Dylan Roof. And I started seeing these things like, well, anger is my problem, right? So because I asked the questions, my beliefs changed. And the belief used to be in my head, but the belief wasn't coming from within me. It was no absolute. And I really believe that there was an absolute. There's something that's absolute and I'm going to know it. I'm going to know it. And I always believed it. And so when I asked that question, that helped me 100%, right? So I'm thinking about the world, right? I'm thinking about how the world is going and how we believe things. And so I'm seeing our country falling apart. It's going to hell in a handbasket, right? It's falling apart, right? And I talk about this. I'm a conservative. I am into politics as well. And so I'm seeing this with this whole, everybody's racist, right? And I'm looking outside and I'm seeing what I'm seeing. I'm seeing these things happening with the cops. And I'm seeing that, okay, is it that the cop just hates them because they're black? Or is he in a situation where they're forced to do something? Is there a force? Is it just that, well, it's a black person? I'm not just going, well, they're telling me, I'm not just looking at it and saying, well, CNN and Yahoo, they're telling me, the adjectives. They're very big on adjectives, They're very big on descriptive words. And I noticed that. They're very descriptive on words. And those words, I start believing in those words. I believe in racism. So if I believe in racism and I believe that people hate each other just for the color of their skin, I'm going to see a black person being killed, and that's what I'm going to see because I believe that, right? But if I ask questions and I don't just believe it and I wait and see and I look at it, I can start saying, well, wait a minute, let's look at other things that are the same, right? You learn that in school. You know how, like, look at all the same things, like, look, if there's all dogs and there's one cat, which one is out of place? And so I really know that that's important to see what else do we see that is the same in this situation. What else is the same? Well, we're seeing people, their morals are changing, right? We're seeing it with music. We see it with most of these people that have been being shot. They're usually committing a crime. Well, why are they committing crimes? Did we get to that part? And why are the police having to come out? Because we got to go to the beginning, right? And then why is that person committing a crime? Well, I've realized because of asking the questions that it's anger. That is anger. When I'm angry, I make bad decisions. When I'm scared, I make bad decisions. When I'm in fear, when you're in fear, the coronavirus, I'm going to make decisions where I say, you know what? We got this coronavirus. People have to stay inside. We have this coronavirus. People need to get vaccinated. Oh, if they don't get vaccinated, well, you should be upset because they're not getting vaccinated. But guess what else is happening, right? Because I'm asking questions. I'm looking, well, what else can this affect? What other things can this affect? Well, we make laws, right? Let's start making laws. Let's make laws so that people cannot get on airplanes if they don't get it. So we'll get this card, and if you don't have this passport, you will not be able to maybe vote. I mean, and then, this is how it starts, right? They put you in fear because you're not asking questions. You're believing one side instead of like, well, let me look at all sides. Let me ask questions. Let me see. And when I started asking those questions, like when I was in the church and the answers were not being given to me, I looked within. I asked God, why am I angry? And he started showing me, you're angry because of your mother and you really needed a relationship with your father. And then God really reeled me in until he showed me Jesse Lee Peterson, which I talk about that all the time. And when I heard him talk to another woman that you are resenting your mother and you need to return to your father, it resonated with me. I was like, oh my God, yes. But it took that asking questions and asking another question and asking another question for me to open up. And it was like, God only reveals what I can handle, which I've noticed that because he's doing that with my ego and stuff, which I talk about in other podcasts as well. I'm realizing that, man, when I ask questions, I don't just believe what I'm told. And now I look back at what I believed in this person, and they were living a life and they weren't changing. And I was changing, right? I wasn't doing that problem. But then I started falling into the church and believing everything into the church because I have a group. Right now I have a group. They all love me. They care about me because Satan knew my problem was, he always told me, like, you're not around people. You need to be around more people. And I'm a loner. I like to be alone. Always have. Never have a problem being alone. I like being alone. I've always been that way. And I'm being told that this is a bad thing. You need to be around people. And then now I find this group of church people and I'm around them and I'm starting to feel like I belong. But then when I start asking questions, now I don't belong again. I'm noticing that they're saying nice things to me, but they're not inviting me to all the parties. They're not becoming my best friend because I'm just not falling in line. And I never fall in line. I've noticed that. I don't fall in line. Well, why do I not fall in line? Because there's nothing that I want in that line. I might start wanting it. I'm at the back of the line. Then when I start getting closer to the front of the line, I start realizing I'm in the wrong line. This is not the line for me. And it kept happening. It kept happening. It kept happening. And I'm seeing that in our world. I'm like, I almost feel like I don't belong here. Like this is a fake world or something. It doesn't make any sense that people will believe that people just hate people for the color of their skin. That just makes no sense. Like if you ask one or two questions, why is this happening? Is it really that? Or is it demoralization of people? Then I go back and I look at the history, Black history, and I start seeing, well, it seemed like they were doing well before all the leaders. They started getting these leaders, and then it seemed like they seemed to be falling apart. Like, why is it falling apart? And why did I fall apart? Well, I fell apart when I had leaders. I fell apart when I went to my sponsor, what I talked about in my last podcast. I went to her and was like, hey, listen, I'm angry. Why am I angry? Well, you're not reading your Bible. You don't trust God. She's telling me things that I'm like, well, how do I trust God? Well, you just have to keep reading your Bible and, you'll trust. I don't trust. And I know she wasn't trusting because I saw her acting out. She wasn't trusting in God. So how can I trust in God if she can't trust in God? I'm not getting the answers, right? I'm asking questions. You see, that's the thing that I'm realizing. We don't ask questions. And I don't know why. I don't know why we sit in those things. I mean, I know it builds our ego and stuff, but is it, why do we believe it? Why do we want to believe some of the stuff? Do we not want to get rid of some of the stuff? That's a good question. Now, here it comes up with something. I realized something. I realized that the reason why many of us don't turn to God is because we have these big egos. And I'm going to tell you, I don't want to lose my ego. Like, it's like this is the big thing. Okay, this is the thing. When we realize that we create nothing, we are not the creator, we're the observer, we're going to run. That is the hardest thing about being a Christian. If you are going to return back to God, I'm going to tell you, you've got to be ready. I'm going to tell you this. I mean, and I'm no preacher. I don't know everything, but I'm going to tell you, going through this process, it is hard. And it's only hard because of my ego. That's the only reason. It's easy. I mean, it's so straight and narrow and easy. I mean, I hear people calling into Jesse Lee Peterson and they have it so much easier, especially men. I don't know why their egos aren't as big. I mean, I kind of know why, but that's another story. But as I'm losing my ego, it's like that control, that thinking that, why did that person do that? They don't know what they're doing. And just every little thing that I think I can control. I control nothing, and this is the hard, and I still am not fully there yet. God has been revealing. You want to control this, you want to control that, you want to control this. And you can't control it. He's in control. And, he's very loving about it, and the loving is he'll keep showing me and he'll let Satan tell me something in my head, and he'll let Satan be like those thoughts come in my head, and Satan will be like, oh, see that person walking down there? They're doing it wrong. If they would do this patient first and then that patient next, everything would be good. Oh, this nurse is this, and this, doctor is this, and he orders wrong. And I'm like realizing that is just full blown ego. That is not from God. That's all from Satan. And it's like we build up more crap, because of one thing, because we resent usually our mothers. That's just the way it is. We were born of the flesh, born of the mother. And we take on a lot of her personality and who she is. And I've noticed that I've taken on a lot of my mother and those little things like, what are you doing that for? Why did you put that here? And why did you put that there? And, I know where you should put it. I know where it should go. I know how you should go. I know how I should go. That's the other thing. I know that I should do this first and then this second and then this third. And God keeps showing it to me and I'm just like, okay, well, I still know that. I'm telling you, that's the hardest part, to return to God. 100%. The ego is the only reason. And I did hear Jesse Lee Peterson say that. He actually said that, but I didn't believe it because I didn't know it. You see, he said it, but did I believe it? No, I didn't believe it. Why do I believe it now? Is because it's happening. The ego ain't going nowhere. It wants me to change it. It wants me to change stuff. And when I don't and do it my way, the ego, it just freaks out. And then it gets me mad, and it doesn't want to die. The ego does not want to die. And God, he got a lot of work to do with me, man. Oh my God, am I a mess? So that really just explains the questioning. Do I just believe? Did I believe what Jesse Lee Peterson said? I was like, well, it is Jesse Lee Peterson, and everything seems to be coming out like that. He says it seems to be coming to be true, but I didn't fully know it. It wasn't like knowledge, and it's weird because like I've talked about that before as well, about like God just kind of reveals things, and I just see it. And like yesterday, he revealed a lot, and I was so excited about it. But then my ego wanted to take over, because Satan gets into everything. He gets into everything. You're going to go get a drink of water. That's how much he gets into everything. He just gets into your whole life. It's just mind-boggling. And I just started realizing even more and more last night. And I couldn't sleep because I was in my head about it. And then I'm like, man, Satan's got me now. Now Satan's going to take it and he's going to interpret what God showed me. And it's like, I'm catching his voice, which is that just knowledge, like, oh, wait a minute. I just knew something. Or, my day will be done. And I'm like, wow, man, I was really in the spirit. I was really living from within. And just everything was just going my way the other day. Like, everything was just falling together. Like, I have to do my taxes and I have a new tax guy. And I sent him my taxes and I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to get this. Usually I'm like, well, they didn't call me back. Didn't worry about it. And things have been happening. It's just been going. And, doctor's appointments, like things have just been happening. Like, I'm like, oh, I need to do this and this. Like I had to send in something and no, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to call them. And then I was like, I'm not going to call, the next day I didn't think about calling. Things just kind of started coming where I got an email saying, all right, we got the paperwork we needed. Cause I called, I got the paperwork, I got what I needed to get done. I did my part. That was it. I had to have somebody fill out some papers. I emailed it to her and they're like, well, we got to see if we got it. The one lady is not in today. She'll call you. I didn't worry about it. And she called. And then like a week later, I see, oh, we received your paperwork. And the interesting thing about the paperwork is it was a few days late, but they got the paperwork and they're not saying, well, it was late or anything. But normally I'm like, would be worried. Like if it didn't get there on time, then I'm gonna have to restart this paperwork. And normally I would do that. But with God, it's just like, it just happens. It just happens the way I did the work and then God takes the work off. It's just like weird how it just worked out the way it was supposed to work out. And I've noticed when I'm just not in my head about it, it works out. But when I'm in my head about stuff, it doesn't work out, right? I'm so worried the whole time and either it works out or it doesn't work out. You know what I mean? But I'm worried the whole time. And that's when I know I'm in my head. And I've been seeing that a lot more lately, but I've just, I just realized that why do I believe what I believe is really important. And it's very different today than it was before. And the only reason is because I asked questions, because I didn't just listen to what somebody said. I didn't just go on CNN and said, CNN says, or I'm a conservative, so Fox says, or Jesse Lee Peterson, everything he's been saying has been true. But I fully didn't believe it in my head. It was like, I'm not sure. But then, boom, it happens. And I know it to be true. It's like knowledge. And I realized, like, when I know it's true, I know it's from God. And I know that it's true, right? I know that it's good. And I know good from evil. And I could see good from evil. And it's just there. And it's interesting, too. Like, one other thing that was kind of interesting. So I keep hearing like, perfect love drowns out fear, right? And I've known this perfect love. I talked about that as well. Like it was just knowledge downloaded. And so I'm watching TV and I think I'm watching Court TV. And there was this funny video where they were on a conference call and the guy had like a cat emoji or a cat thing where he looked like a cat. And he was embarrassed, but, he came on at the end and he was explaining, said, during these really hard times, we need some funny stuff in our lives. And I was like, hard times. And I'm like, wow, that's so crazy. There are hard times and I don't feel it. It's like I'm in the world, but I'm not of it. And that's what it means. And I'm like, wow, that is so cool. I'm sitting there like, yeah, I'm in the world, but I'm not of it. It's like, it doesn't faze me. I know what's going on. I know why it's going on. It's interesting to see, but I don't have that fear or that I don't get to feel it, and I'll be honest with you, some of the fear, I'm thinking like, oh, I'm still in fear a little bit. But when I get, not confrontation, but when somebody starts talking to me about, God or whatever, I just start speaking truth. Or they talk about situations, and I'll realize something. I'll be like, oh man, that definitely was an evil thing or whatever. I'll say it. And I won't have fear of like the repercussions because they may totally disagree with me. But I seem to know how to like handle it and not be upset about it. The only time is when I'm in my head. But those things are easier. Like they're easier like once the some of the thoughts and some of that ego goes away, the fear is less. It's almost like it's just like a pendulum, like one thing goes higher and the other thing goes lower. It's been really, really interesting. And since God has been taking away this one ego part that I think I'm in control of all the little things, like he's been taking that away, I can see him more. It's almost like he was a little fuzzy and the fuzziness is getting less and it's getting more clear. It's like this video camera right here, if I go out of focus and then it focuses back in, it's like life was like I was out of focus. It was very blurry. Like I could see some truth, but it wasn't exactly like I thought it was right. It should be pretty right. I mean, I think I'm right. Like maybe I'm 80% sure and then I'm 90% sure. But with God, it's like 100%. It happens. You just react to something and go, wow, I'm reacting really differently. And then I realized the times when I'm in my head, I'm like out of control almost. Mentally out of control, physically. I'm over here, I'm over there. I got anxiety. And I do know that once we repent, he allows us to see. And he allows me to feel the pain of it. Like, this is what you feel when you're in this. And then it's like he takes it away. And I'm like, and this is what it feels like when you're not. It's like, that's what it was causing. It's so crazy to see the cause and effect. The cause of anxiety. Like we talk about anxiety can cause physical issues, but you don't realize it until the anxiety that was there goes away. And if you don't take a pill, it just goes away because God loves us so much that he will take that stuff away. And it is so amazing. It really is amazing. And so I know I was starting off this podcast really talking about, beliefs and why we believe what we believe. And I do think that actually goes with it if you think about it, right? I don't just believe it because I was told it, right? I see it happening in my life. I mean, you can't stop it. But when I was reading the Bible, I would pretend like I would believe it was real that I was feeling better. Because I'd be like, oh my God, this amazing thing would happen. And I would do like a little podcast. Like I would do like a short little video and I would put it, I have it up on my Instagram if you check some of my old ones. And I would be talking about God and I'm so excited. And then I'm like 2 days later, I'm a mess. I was so unhappy. And it's really weird to see that. Like I like to go back and see some of my posts. Like they put up your post on Facebook and I'm thinking, this is when I was Bible thumping and reading the Bible. And I look at what I wrote and I'm like, man, that is all ego. I wasn't feeling that great, but I believed I was. It was like I was being so deceived and I was really being deceived by Satan. And the cool thing that I've been hearing Jesse Lee Peterson talk about, and now I'm starting to see it, that the world, it's fake. It's fake. Just like it was fake for me to think that I was in control of things. They believe that they're in control. Like these race hustlers with all this racial junk that's not even real. It's not even real. They think they're in control. But you notice that they're not happy. Because if they were happy, they wouldn't be trying to control you. And they get more money and they're still screaming and yelling. Because they're angry at something. And it definitely is not white people. It's definitely not Asian hate. You think they really care about Asians? They didn't seem to care about Asians when they wanted to go to college. They didn't seem to care about that. Nobody cares about injustice. The truth is they want power. And the ego just gets bigger and bigger. Because when I was teaching at the Celebrate Recovery, the Christian-based recovery program, my ego was out of control. I felt like I was better than these people. And I believed it. That's something I believed. Even though I said I was trying to help them, I knew deep down that I just wanted to feel better. I was searching and searching and searching to feel better. And Satan will make me feel better. And then he'll drop the ball on you. He will drop the ball and you'll fall. And you've seen it. You see it with actors and actresses, right? You see it with Robin Williams. He had everything going for him. Kills himself. That's what Satan does. He'll build you up, man, and he'll make you top of the mountain. And then he'll just drop you. and he'll watch you fall. Because Satan's love is no love at all. Satan wants you to destroy yourself. He wants me to destroy myself. He wants to steal, kill, and destroy. What is happening in our society? What's the reason? I don't really know fully, but I know. I know that it's power and money. Always follow the power. Follow the money, and you'll see. Follow the leaders. They're rich. Follow the ones that are falling for it. They're poor and they're dying. And if they're not poor, they're dying. And they're sick and suffering, right? Just like my friend who was a leader. 8 years he was not doing drugs, right? He was in that recovery program for 8 years. Fell off the wagon, dies. Death, just like that. Christian, reading the Bible. Nothing changed because he didn't ask the questions. He never forgave. He never repented and forgave, and he died. And that's just the way it is. All the things he did built his ego up, and he even said it. The reason why I relapsed is because I put this above God. And that is so true. I put everything above God. I put Dana above God. I put my family above God. I put my dog above God. I put my whole life into me, making myself better, to be the best, to be a strong woman. And I was dying inside, and it was getting worse. And now, trying to get rid of this ego is not easy. And I'm not doing it. Like I said, I'm not doing it. It's totally God. Realizing I'm in control of nothing, that's hard. That's hard, man. That is really hard. But it's worth it. So I'm going to end this. I got to get to work. I'm even in my work scrubs right here. I got to get to work. But let me tell you, for me, life is amazing. It is so awesome. God is amazing. Promises after promises after promises. I drove home yesterday, and I usually been telling myself like I want to get fast food, and I didn't have the taste for it. God's taking it away. I just was like, I would eat it. I would go out. I would stop off at 12 at night in the morning because I would get off work, and I'm driving home. I'm almost home. It's midnight, and I would go off and I would get like McDonald's. I was slipping. But I just let it happen, and God changed it. God changed it. It was so weird. It was like almost cotton was in my mouth when I was thinking about eating it. I came home and I ate something not too bad for me. So miracles happen. God is a miracle worker. It is really is amazing. So I suggest, it's only a suggestion, it's my suggestion, ask questions, believe no one, only within. And the only way I knew how to get within was to do this silent prayer thing that Jesse Lee Peterson talks about. He has it on his bondrebuildingtheman.com. It's on his YouTube channel. I really highly recommend you check out his Jesse Lee Peterson show. It's Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. East Pacific time. He's in California, LA. Also, thank you guys for checking out my podcast, A Life Too Sweet, on YouTube, A Life Too Sweet Coaching on all major podcast sites. Also, I am on Instagram. I think it's A Life Too Sweet Christian Living. I'm on Facebook, A Life Too Sweet. My name is Dana. You can find me on Facebook with my name. Listen, man, life is great. It's great for me. But I always suggest not believing in what others say, but believing come from within. Because we know ourselves better. If I don't know myself, then I can't know anything else. I can't see what's going on. I'm blind and cannot see until I look within, and then I start seeing. And I'm going to tell you, some of it's hard to see. So if you really, really, really want to get rid of your anger, I really suggest checking out Jesse Lee Peterson. It really can help you find you. Silent prayer is amazing. I do it in the morning and I do it at night. One day, the last few days I've been doing it maybe 40 minutes, 50 minutes. It's been nice. Calms me down, gets me centered, and listen to God. And God's been revealing some amazing things, man. It has been amazing. Actually, it's been my 5-month on the 11th. So it's been 5 months. Many things are better. I still have a little bit of an ego, and God is working his ways through. I don't know. He's hard at work, man. But my life is easy. It's easy. It's amazing. So thank you again for checking out my podcast, A Life Too Sweet, on YouTube, A Life Too Sweet Coaching. Subscribe, right? Subscribe, ring the bell, share it, make a comment. I'll try to answer the comments. Help me out. Let me know if any of these have helped you, if they made you crazy, if you think I'm nuts. If you listen to Jesse Lee Peterson's show, let me know how you feel about it. Man, life is amazing. I hope you guys have an amazing, amazing life. The kingdom of heaven is within. It's here. Jesus died already. He came. He's not coming back. He already came, guys. It's done. We can live on heaven, this side of heaven. Read Genesis. It even talks about how he made heaven is right above us, but this is a heaven as well. We can live in the spirit. The Old Testament, they did not have that, but we get it. The New Testament. We living out the New Testament here. It's not the Old Testament, baby. It's the New Testament. So forgive your mama. Return back to the Father. Live an awesome life, man. I mean, I know I can't tell you what to do because I ain't God, which it seems like I think I am sometimes. But I'm not. He is. I can do nothing. Nothing, I tell you, on my own. It's either God or Satan. Do what you want, right? Do what you want. Ask questions. What do you believe? Why do you believe what you believe? Ask yourself that question. Thank you guys for checking out my podcast. You have a good one, and I will see you in the next podcast. Bye.